Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen and the weather in sunny Salford is actually sunny, but it is freezing. So if you've got your parkas and your gloves, put them all on because it's brass. Loads of stories to get through, most of them centering around yesterday's press conference and all the sort of intrigue that went on with that about journalists being banned. Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag not taking any prisoners, banning journalists from the Manchester Evening News, from the Mirror, and from Sky. It was Samuel Luckhurst, Cave Solikol, and Dave McDonnell were amongst those who were banned from yesterday's press conference because of stories that were put out. The club unhappy, saying that the journalists didn't reach out for them, or to them, sorry, and that was the reason for the ban. It's quite an unusual step to ban journalists, but it has happened before. Happened a lot under Sir Alex Ferguson, of course. Sir Alex Ferguson took no prisoners. He banned quite a few journalists. And I think we spoke to Daniel Taylor on the Tier 1 podcast about a year ago now. Daniel Taylor, personally, probably my favourite journalist. I think he's a fantastic journalist. Always does his own work. Always well-researched. Great, well-written pieces as well. I think he got banned by Sir Alex for years, I think it was, because he correctly announced that Rio Ferdinand was carrying an injury. I think that was the reason. Double check that, but I'm pretty sure it was. So it can happen. Obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson wouldn't speak to the Beeb at one point because I think they ran a story on him that he wasn't happy about him and his son. And I remember when I was working in local radio, one of our reporters, he got banned from the press conference by Sir Alex Ferguson for something the DJs had said, a joke they'd made about Beckham getting... seeing point like that, Beckham getting a boot kicked in his face. So when our reporter went in, who I won't name, went into the press conference, he was told in the middle of the press conference by Sir Alex, "You're banned for 3 months." And he had to get up, walk to the front, pick up his recorder, his Marantz or whatever he was using to record the audio, and walk out. I mean, pretty humiliating. So the idea that journalists haven't been banned before is nonsense. I've seen a couple of people tweeting that. They have. But it's quite an unusual step for Erik Ten Hag because it was something that happened not every week under Sir Alex. I mean, most journalists were allowed in, but it did happen under Sir Alex, and now it's happening under Erik Ten Hag. I'm just going to go through some of the stories around it. The BBC have covered this. It says Manchester United banned journalists from 4 media outlets from Tuesday's news conference with boss Erik Ten Hag. It says journalists from ESPN, so it's Rob Dawson as well from ESPN, Rob, who we know well, who's been on the channel. Manchester Evening News and the Mirror were excluded after reporting some players were unhappy with Dutchman Ten Hag. Now, I spoke about this in my news on yesterday. I think Sky's Cave had gone, Sky Cave Solikol had gone quite big on it, and then other outlets have picked up this idea that the players were unhappy, they were questioning his training methods and all the rest of it. And I did say you might want to take that with a pinch of salt because, no disrespect to Cave, but he had been wrong about a few other things. I remember the takeover bid where he said the bids are in, and then an hour later he said the bids weren't in. I'm sure he's got his sources, but he's not infallible. He ran that story. I think Dave McDonnell ran the story about some players, again, being unhappy, some wondering whether Jadon Sancho needs to return to the fold. And obviously, there's been stories from Luckhurst, there's been stories from Dawson. And then the journalists were banned. So the club said, we are taking action against a number of news organisations, not for publishing stories we don't like, but for doing so without contacting us, first to give us the opportunity to comment, challenge, or contextualise. We believe this is an important principle to defend, and we hope it can lead to a reset in the way we work together. Speaking at the news conference, this is the BBC article. It goes on to say, Ten Hag said they should have come to us first and not go round our back, printing articles. That is not the right thing. If the players have a different opinion, of course I will listen, but they haven't told me, or maybe 1 or 2 players, but the majority wants to play like this, proactive, dynamic, brave. So Erik Ten Hag there, he's come out fighting, and I'm all for this. Listen, he's under a lot of pressure, Erik Ten Hag, and I'll get onto the journalist bit in a minute, but I want to talk about him coming out fighting, him defending himself. I'm all for that because I want to see a bit of fight from him. I want to see a bit of enthusiasm from him, and I feel like if we lose against Chelsea tonight, he's going to be in serious, serious trouble, especially with the fixtures we've got coming up. We've got a trip to Anfield, we've got a game against Bayern Munich. You know, in the next month or so, we could be out of the Champions League. We can, if I'm just putting it, out there, this could happen. I'm not saying it will. We could have had a bad result against Liverpool again at Anfield, and he could be in serious trouble. And it might be that Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes in and looks at that. So you want to see a bit of fire in your belly from Erik Ten Hag, and we've seen that. Now, banning journalists, as a journalist myself, I've reported, I've been at the press conferences, I've covered Manchester United, I've covered Manchester City, unfortunately. I've been at numerous press conferences at other teams, Blackburn, Bolton, clubs like that around the Northwest, even Liverpool, unfortunately. So I'm not really one for banning journalists. I think you should engage with journalists. You should have that discussion. If you're not happy, then you should let them know. But I get it. I get that you feel that you've been done by, and you feel that you've not been treated fairly, or that this hasn't been done with the best intentions or in good faith. So we'll have to see what happens. I don't think it's going to be a long ban. I'd be surprised if they were banned for life or months or anything. They might be back in the next press conference. But it's one of those moves where if this backfires, when I say backfire, I mean if the results go against you, those journalists who you've banned ain't going to be your bezies. They're not going to be your best friends. They're going to carry on reporting the stories that they feel they can report. And if those are negative ones, then they're going to push them. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. But it's quite an interesting one. I will say this, that I at least want to see something from Erik ten Hag, and he's showing me a bit now. But the main thing we want to see is results on the pitch. Other newspapers obviously picked up on this, on what's going on. Just on the Erik ten Hag press conference, I'm sure you've all read it or seen it. You've seen the words there, but he's admitted it's a big challenge from Chelsea. Big game tonight. I can't stress that enough. Also on the dressing room, he said it. It says in the Mirror that ten Hag has insisted he still has the backing of the United dressing room despite the mounting crisis. Yeah, he's like I said there, he's coming out fighting, and he's saying that the players are with him. There might be one or two disgruntled, and there might be one or two unhappy, but I suppose you'd expect that if players aren't getting picked, or if, especially Jadon Sancho, he's not going to be happy. He's not even training with the first team. A couple of other stories to get through as well. I see that Mason Greenwood is wanted by Real Sociedad. This is in the Mirror. They're targeting Mason Greenwood. It says here that basically Real Sociedad have been installed as the favourites to sign Mason Greenwood from Manchester United. Hope you're having a brew. Greenwood, 22, is spending the season on loan at Spanish outfit Getafe after United confirmed that he'd continue his career away from Old Trafford. Greenwood has scored 2 goals and registered 3 assists in 11 top-flight appearances this season, it says here. So Real Sociedad, obviously, in for him. We'll have to wait and see what happens with Mason Greenwood. Like I said, I always felt there was a slight opening there for him to come back to Manchester United. You may disagree. Let us know in the comments what you think of that. Don't forget, we are going to be back later on with the watch along for the Chelsea game. Me, Joe Smith, going to be there. The preview's already up. There's also a little bit of a video from Housen versus, where he's taking aim at Richard Keys. Always worth a watch. Listen, Erik ten Hag's come out fighting. He's fighting back against journalists, against people that are bringing negativity to the club. And I'm all for that. But we need to see that on the pitch. And we need to see it tonight. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget as well, on the 28th, we are going to be in Dublin. Me, Macola, Housen, and Joe, and Wes Brown, and Uncle Webby. There's a link in the description. Come down there on the 28th of December if you can join us. I've been Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk.